Happy to be here with you today to talk about mental well-being and the link with productivity. I'm sitting here in this empty room, empty walls behind me, but we're getting ready to move to a new home. So yeah, usually there's a little bit more life in my house, but that's what it is in this transition phase for now. So I don't know about you, but I have really enjoyed the stretching, and I actually need more of it, I think. And the body plays an important role in our mental well-being as well, and we'll get to that in a moment. We're a nice group today, so we want to allow for some interaction, and the way we're going to do that is through the chat mostly. So I'm going to check in with you throughout the presentation, asking you to put in a few words in the chat. So, and if we have time at the end, we can do some Q&A as well. If we don't get to that, or we don't get to your question, feel free to reach out to me directly afterwards. So let's try out the chat right away. So what brought you to call into this webinar today? What is there one word that you can put into the chat that kind of describes why you're here today? Better balance, overwhelm, encouragement. So that sounds in line with our need for mental and general well-being, right? Good. So the topic for today is, as we said, right, mental wellness and productivity. So what do you consider productivity? So again, enter a word in the chat, one word, couple of words, that kind of describes that for you. What is productivity for you? Doing stuff that matters, being efficient, getting things done, accomplishment, again, getting things done. Yep. So I look at productivity definitely, right, from the aspect of getting things done. But I also look at it more broadly as all those factors that ultimately contribute to our getting things done, like, for example, creativity. I used to think that I wasn't creative until I realized that actually creating an efficient Excel file or a good presentation requires creativity as well. So it's not just drawing or painting, which it is, right, is creative as well. Being present and notice what's happening, what is needed in any situation. I also consider being productive, because what's lost when we're not present, not listening or not observing all the moving parts to a situation. Problem solving is another aspect of productivity, being productive by enforcing collaboration with others, by inspiring others to be productive. So it won't come as a surprise to you that many studies have shown a strong link between our well-being and productivity. And this is true for organizations as well as for the rest of our lives. When we're feeling down, either physically or mentally, our productivity levels decrease, which sometimes has us entered this vicious circle. We don't feel well, we see our productivity levels go down. This makes us judge ourselves or feel unfulfilled, which then again affects our well-being, and so on. So it's important to take care of ourselves, our physical well-being, through regular activity like the stretching we did earlier, but also, and equally so, our mental well-being, if we want to be productive and have fulfilled business and personal lives. So what jeopardizes our mental well-being? Since our well-being is crucial to our productivity and our health, our lives overall, it's what I'm going to focus on mostly today. So what jeopardizes our mental wellness? So the APA has a yearly survey conducted to research levels and impacts of stress. And this last survey was conducted online, of course, within the United States, just last January. And 84% of 2,000 adults that were part of this survey, 84% indicate that they have feelings related to prolonged periods of stress. That's quite a lot. So, and the main feelings are feelings of anxiety, sadness, anger. The main three sources of stress were indicated to be future of the nation, the pandemic, not a surprise there, and political unrest. And all those big reasons are summed to sources of stress from daily life: work, family, money, illness. And though they report similar average stress levels between men and women, women are more likely than men to report that their stress levels are increasing. And they're also more likely than men to report physical and emotional systems of stress. Gallup has performed a study interviewing more than 7,000 employees, and found that 23% of employees reported feeling burnout at work. And an additional 44% reported feeling burnt out sometimes. Now that makes for a total of 67% of employees feeling burnout at some point. And generally, people seem to have a common kind of stereotype for who is prone to burnout. So people who don't know how to manage their time, or who are just easily overwhelmed, or more sensitive than others. But actually, this study shows that the 5 main causes of burnout are organizational ones. Unfair treatment at work. So this can include bias or favoritism or unfair compensation, mistreatment by a coworker happens as well, unfortunately. Unmanageable workload. And even engaged, high-performing people can quickly shift from being very optimistic to being kind of hopeless as they drown in unmanageable workload. Lack of role clarity. So when accountability and expectations are moving targets, we can become exhausted just trying to kind of figure out what people really want from us. Lack of support and communication from the manager. A negligent or confrontational manager kind of leaves employees feeling uninformed, alone, on the defensive. And then last but not least, unreasonable time pressure. So unreasonable deadlines and pressure can create, again, this downward spiral. Burnout, which clearly means we're not well, has a huge impact on productivity, for obvious reasons, and it has a huge impact on organizations: the cost of sick leave, turnover, lower performance. And the effects of burnout don't stop at the office door, right? So we all know that stress is bad for us. So how can we create adjustments to our lifestyle, but mostly to our beliefs and way of thinking, to increase our mental wellness? Because while the main causes of burnout are organizational ones, it's still up to every single one of us to recognize what's happening and to do something about it. So what jeopardizes our mental well-being? Before we move on, this is kind of the moment of the poll we were mentioning before. So Denise, if you can launch the poll. And the question: what are the sources of stress that mostly jeopardize your mental well-being? And if you're like all of us, you can choose more than one. So go ahead and answer the poll.
We'll give it probably 10 more seconds or so. We're about halfway there. You can select multiple options. All right, I'm going to end the polling. and share the results.
So we're kind of almost evenly spread all over the place, which is not really a surprise. Worrying about something, not having much or any control over the outcome of a situation. And as I said, so we are kind of all over the place, and I guess most of us have maybe also chosen more than one, which is again not a surprise. So we know what takes our well-being away. We have plenty of examples of that. But what generates our well-being, and specifically our mental well-being? So taking steps to look after your well-being can help you deal with this pressure and reduce the impact that stress has on your life. And there are tools and approaches we can learn to strengthen our resilience. So I cannot underline this enough. Dealing with stress and avoid getting to too high stress levels is something we can learn. So it's not a natural ability that if you don't have it, oh my God, you won't ever have it. No, we can learn it. And external circumstances, those situations that trigger your stress, those unfortunately will never go away. There will always be new things that pop up, unexpected things. But what we can do is learn to deal with them in different ways. We can learn to take care of ourselves. And before you go there, self-care is not about being selfish. It's about putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. It's about having integrity, really. And when you take good care of yourself, you then create the time and the space and the energy to give to others because you want to. And you do so from a place of service and a place of love, not because of habit or guilt or obligation. And of course, again, not just at home, right? So let us be an example for our co-workers instead of being the last to leave and pass on the message that overworking is kind of what makes us successful. Know thyself. So the number of hours you can work without it affecting your health, the levels of stress you can deal with without it affecting the quality of your life, how many hours of sleep you need to wake up rested, and so on. You need to know what that looks like for you and only you. There's no point in comparing yourself with others. First of all, what you see on the outside when you look at others is mostly probably not the full story. And second, so what if others work 15 hours a day and are happy and healthy and they can do 20 hours a day? If you can't, if it makes you unhealthy, it doesn't work. So it needs to change. It needs to stop. And you're the only one who can decide to do that, who can decide to take care of yourself. You're the only one who can make that a priority, who can make the choices necessary to create that well-being in your life. So what or who is working against us? I mean, what are we still talking about? We all know stress is not good for us. We all know it affects the quality of our life, of our work, our relationships. It reduces productivity. So why are we not doing this consistently? What is stopping us from putting different routines in place? Who or what is working against us here? As we try and change our life, little or maybe even screaming big voices will show up in our head. And yes, we all hear those voices. We all have them. And they are showing up and they're going to try and hold you back. Those are our saboteurs. The strongest voice of all, the saboteur we all live with to a greater or lesser extent, is what we call the judge. That's the one saying, what's wrong with me? How could I have been so stupid? It's the inner critic that never misses an opportunity to attack us and to badger us. We all have a judge, again. And then we have some other, let's say, cooperative saboteurs that cooperate with the judge. And I've kind of spread them all over the screen. So The avoider, for example, tells you to just let it go instead of telling someone actually, that they might not want to hear. Or the stickler, the perfectionist, who wants everything to be exactly right. The pleaser, who tells us that to be a good person, I should put the needs of others above my own, and so on. So saboteurs are, strangely enough, not just bad voices. They have their function. They've had their function in our life. They try to protect us from failure, from judgment of other people, from fear. So let's go back to the chat for a moment. Which one or multiple of these voices, of these saboteurs, do you recognize? Enter them in the chat for us. Pleaser, hyper-rational, avoider, hyper-vigilant. So, and they're coming in and they're rolling in. So this again kind of shows you we all have those voices. So it's normal. It's not very nice, but it's normal. And these voices, as I said, have been quite productive. To stay on theme here, they might have helped us become high-performing businesswomen, for example. Now, the trick is not to be controlled by these voices and remain at choice. So we can hear the voice, and honestly, that's the first step. So create the space to actually hear them and notice what they're saying and say kind of, okay, I hear you. I know you're trying to protect me, but this is not what I need or want right now. What I want is, and you can fill in the blanks and control, therefore, the choices that you can make. So what to do then? We're now going to focus on a few small examples of how you can support yourself during the day to keep being aware and make the right choices for yourself towards creating well-being and therefore towards being more productive. So I indicated it a few seconds ago. So space between thoughts, space between reactions. What do I mean by that? According to neuroscience, mindfulness practices dampen the activity of our amygdala and increase the connections between the amygdala and our prefrontal cortex. And both of these parts of the brain help us to be less reactive to stresses and to recover better from stress when we experience it. So mindfulness, and there are many studies, can help relieve stress, even help treat heart disease, lower our blood pressure, reduce chronic pain, improve our sleep. Mindfulness just improves our mental health, our mental well-being. The body, we were talking about it before, and Annie was mentioning it as well. The body has wisdom. It knows things before even our mind does. So listen to your body often. And we'll do a quick check-in later as part of an exercise. So do a mindfulness body scan, connecting to your body, even for just a few seconds at a time. So like right now, right? You're sitting on the chair, feel your butt on your chair. Feel your feet on the ground. Your breath going in and out. And just that pause, that connection with the body for just a few seconds is a very effective way of interrupting and noticing the chatter of your mind, noticing those voices, those saboteurs we were talking about before. So connecting with the body helps create that space, which allows you to act instead of to react. It helps to become response-able. And how we focus our attention shapes the structure of our brain. So well-being comes out when we create connections in our lives, when we use mindfulness to help the brain achieve and maintain integration. Integration is at the heart of how we connect to each other in healthy ways, honoring each other's differences while keeping our lines of communication open. And integration enables us to be flexible and be free. With the connecting freedom of integration comes then a sense of vitality, of well-being. And without integration, we can become prisoners in our own behaviors, in our own anxiety, in our own depression. So if there's one thing you do for yourself, ideally first thing in the morning, before you look at your phone, before you think about emails, before anything else, is to sit quietly and do your mindfulness practice, 10, 15 minutes. And that's really, I would say, the biggest thing that benefits us. Now, a very natural, very normal thought process that we all do is making assumptions. It helps us judge situations. It helps us judge people. Can I trust this person? Is this situation safe? And we make hundreds of assumptions every day. And most of the time, we don't even realize it. And that's where it gets a little tricky. So if we make too many assumptions without checking in with facts, we risk making choices. We risk taking decisions based on the stories that we have built in our head. So, like a simple example, if I'm meeting with my manager and I see that she looks a bit grumpy, and I might assume that, okay, she got out of bed with the wrong foot this morning. And then I assume she is annoyed to start with, and I assume she will not want to hear what I'm struggling with on such important project. So I take the decision to not say anything and say, yes, everything's fine. And all of this happens in like 2 seconds. But what if my assumptions are incorrect? Maybe my boss was just preoccupied with her previous meeting. What if my project is actually top priority and she absolutely wants to know what is going on? So she may discover later with too much delay that, corrective action should have been taken. So will she trust me again with a significant project? So we need to be careful not to make assumptions on top of assumptions on top of another assumption and take decisions that are not based on fact, but on supposition. And this is also very much linked to our worries. Are our worries based on real things, on facts, or are we actually assuming things that are incremental to our worries? So checking in with yourself and asking yourself, what assumptions are you making? It's a simple question that can help you kind of take a step back and again, create some space between you and your thoughts. What questions can you ask to check in if your assumptions are correct? So that's another way to, again, become aware of what's going on up here. What do you say yes to and what do you say no to? So another awareness that you can create for yourself is to ask yourself these questions. Every time that an additional suggestion or event is, coming on top of your to-do list, even if potentially it's a fun or pleasurable one. What do you say yes to and what do you say no to? If you say yes to one thing, you most probably are saying no to something else. And if you say no to another thing, what are you saying yes to? So if you say yes to doing a favor for your colleague, for example, what do you need to say no to be able to do that? If you say no to 15 minutes mindfulness practice in the morning, what are you saying yes to? Are you saying yes to jumping into your emails straight away? Are you potentially saying yes to more anxiety, to more reaction instead of action? So if you ask yourself, what am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to? And the answer to that question gives you what you want, you're good to go. But if not, then again, you have created the opportunity to make a different choice. So stop as often as you can and ask yourself, what am I saying yes to? And what am I saying no to? And listen for what comes. So it's finally time for a brief exercise. And we're going to do this here together, but you can go back to this later by yourself, as many times as you want. So, okay, you're all comfortably sitting in your chairs. So close your eyes for a second and take a few deep breaths. So count to 4 on the in-breath through your nose, and count to 4 on the exhale through your mouth. And now check in with your mind. What thoughts are present right now? Just notice them, bring them into your awareness. Now take another deep breath and check in with your body. What do you feel? Is there tension somewhere? Just feel it. What does your body need? And now take another deep breath and check in with your emotions. What emotion is here now? And there may be more than one. And now take another deep breath and check in with your spirit, your soul. Notice the aliveness that is within you. What are you grateful for in this moment? Okay, so take another deep breath, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes, move your body a little bit, stretch out so you're fully back. So this is a very simple, quick, it took us 2 minutes maybe? Very quick check-in with yourself. And you know, when you check in with yourself, and you can do this multiple times a day, because again, it takes 2 minutes, it brings our state into awareness. So instead of plowing through the day head down, once you become aware of how we're doing, you can again make different choices. So over time, you will become quite good at checking in with yourself. You start doing it quite naturally, and you know it's quicker, more and more quicker every day. So as you can see, what is constantly coming back is putting yourself into the condition of making conscious choices. I wholeheartedly believe that being a choice is the most important thing we have. And if you can make conscious choices, you're setting yourself free. And well, what is more important than freedom in our lives? So last but not least, I want to briefly talk about asking for help. Asking for help is one of the things that seems to be quite difficult for many of us. We may label it as a weakness, that we should be able to do this on our own. But there's also another perspective to asking for help, because when someone asks us for help, we are ready to offer it, right? Why is it so much easier to offer help than to receive it? Brené Brown addresses this in one of her videos, and I put the link on the slide. She explains how when you're perfectly okay with offering help, but cannot ask help for yourself, deep down, you actually think less of the person who's asking and more of yourself offering the help. And I must admit, that was quite an eye-opener for me as well. Of course, I do not think less of people when I help them, or do I? Because if I think less of me when I need help, it's kind of a contradiction, right? It's either the one or the other. And people are there to help you. Like you, they feel good about helping others. And if you still don't feel comfortable asking people around you, your friends, family, or co-workers for help, ask a paid professional for help. You do not have to go at it alone. It's not making you more of a hero. I'm a coach, and I have my own coach, and it really helps me. So we're almost at the end of my time here together with you today. And today we have talked about mental wellness and how it significantly impacts our productivity and how stress takes away our well-being. But why is a particular event stressful for me and not stressful for you? So when an event happens, and an event is an event, and if we kind of put to the side for a second, let's say the really difficult things that of course can happen in life, right? But I'm kind of generalizing it more to the day-to-day stuff that happens to us. An event is an event. It's not good or bad until we interpret it, until we judge it as good or bad. And the way we then talk to ourselves about the event shapes how we feel about it. It generates excitement or anxiety. It generates happiness or sadness, enthusiasm or fear. And that is what we then act upon. We execute upon a behavior which creates an impact for ourselves and for our world. And this is how a neutral event can be stressful for you, but not for me, and vice versa. Which also means that if we can manage the self-talk, if we can manage those saboteurs, if we can manage that, we can manage our emotions and therefore our behaviors and the impact that we have. So it's really critical to create that mental space to recognize the self-talk, decide if it's working for us or if it's working against us. And if we can see that, we can choose to change it. And I just talked about impact right now, and impact on ourselves, impact on the world around us. And sometimes, especially when stress levels are high and we're driven by reactive tendencies, we don't realize that everything we do, even when we do nothing, impacts the systems we are part of. If I participate in a meeting and I don't say anything, I impact that group that is sitting around the table or sitting in the Zoom room. My energy impacts the energy in the room, whether I want it or not, whether I realize it or not. So becoming aware of our impact and having the desired and the needed impact, decide how we want to show up in this world, is important for us and for the world around us. Knowing the message we send and ensuring it is in alignment with who we really are and what we really want to send out into the world is what actually will support us. It will allow us to be in integrity with ourselves, feel fulfilled and create that state of well-being for ourselves and for the people around us. So as we manage our own productivity, we impact organizational productivity and our family's productivity and again, all the people around us. So let's do that as consciously as possible. So this is really the end of my presentation for you. And I want to leave you with this quote. Do not let things that try to steal your peace rob you of your joy. Do not give them the permission to scare you into no performance. You have the responsibility for your well-being. You have the power of choice on how you talk to yourself, the assumptions you make, what you say yes to or no to, and if you allow yourself to receive help. And it's a lifelong journey with ups and downs for all of us, definitely, me included. So I hope that this was helpful for you. And if you want to go deeper in any of the topics that we discussed today, and we still have maybe 1 or 2 minutes for a couple of questions. And otherwise, again, or how to help your teams increase their productivity, I'm happy to talk. So reach out to me.